just to delve a little bit deeper into your characters, what personality traits would you say make you good around horses?
Starting with me? So I think I'm going to go the opposite way with that. So like for me with my journey with horses, my natural personality traits are not helpful in any way, shape or form. So I'm quite a enthusiastic, sort of silly, erratic, high energy person. And for anything to do with horses, especially for Liberty work, it's just the worst thing in the world. You know, we might, if we were going to use, you know, older language to describe it, say that I had a hot seat, if you know what I mean. I was always full on and more about me than the horse. And this came to a head at, I went for a clinic with a man called Frédéric Pignon, and he's absolutely incredible French Liberty artist. And to explain a Fred clinic, if he's never met you, then the first thing you have to do is you arrive and he says, have you done Liberty before? And now, of course, I was 18 and suffering from something called young man's disease. And so I arrived, said, can you do Liberty? I said, I bloody can. And he said, right, well, it's an hour lesson. For the first 10 minutes, you take your horse in and you show me what you can do. So I had Malik, my famous dapple grey. He's an amazing horse. And me and Malik galloped into that arena, bareback and bridleless, thinking we were, you know, hi-ho silver, and away. I went flat out on him, whistle stopped him, skid stopped, bowed him, stood on his bum, jumped down, laid him down, rolled him on his back, sat him like a dog, got him up, cantered him around me, made him rear, you know, Spanish walk, everything. I threw the kitchen sink at Fred, turned round to look at him like, yeah, and Fred looked at me like I'd peed on his shoes. What followed was a dressing down like nothing you've ever seen. I won't go through the entire conversation, but it ends with me with tears and snot pouring down my face. And just let me just highlight how bad this is. Most people, I do clinics these days now as well, and you're really thinking, you know, sessions up to an hour, and you're thinking, you know, I need to keep this time on track and I need to not run over and all of those things. I was so diabolically bad that Fred said, I'm going to teach you twice a day and you don't need to pay more. He is like, it's not because I like you, it's because I feel sorry for your horse. Okay? Now, I wasn't being mean to the horse, but I was getting the horse to do things, not doing things with the horse. I was pushing buttons and mechanically making things happen with no sense of connection. And so first thing that I would say for Liberty there is you can have a spectacularly trained Liberty horse that doesn't leave you and have zero connection, zero communication really going on. And what Fred taught me was that I needed to learn how to step down my energy, how to find a calm inside me. This led to me coming up with this idea of being an emotional anchor, opposed to letting my horse pull my emotion up or down, but trying to be a steady, relaxing, calming point that would attract them mentally and physically to that, you know, to that spot. And that's probably the most valuable lesson I've ever had in my life as a horseman and as a person. So yeah, not a personality trait that made me better, but if I hadn't been that person, I wouldn't have had that interaction with Fred and wouldn't be where I am now.
I hate going after you. And you, actually. Can I just keep going first, please? Thanks. Okay, so I think if we do... I mean, we talked a little bit, we said 3 words yesterday, didn't we, with this one? So my first one was that I am a workaholic, which we then went on to discuss the pros and cons of being a workaholic and why one becomes a workaholic. But I think it's more like just such a drive to want to do things better. And and attention to detail and that side of it. But I think we nearly all have an experience like Ben, in the sense I have a coach who I've worked with now for about 22, 23 years called David Hunt. And the first time that I had a lesson with him, I was probably 22. And he... It wasn't really my choice to have a lesson with him. It was my sister Hannah who really wanted to. And he came to ours to do a clinic. And I had several lessons with him. And the first lesson that I had, I'd done quite well in Young Riders, had a fairly successful career in that level. And it's sort of the horse that I was riding first had won at nationals and things. And similar, I was like, okay, we can show everyone how good we are. This is cool. And while I warmed this horse up, David sat silently in the corner of the arena, which I have since learned he does all the time. But I was a little bit intimidated by the silence, which really went on for quite a long time. And it would be fair to say that I cried a lot in that lesson as well. But it was because he was honest. And he was not trying to pull me to bits in any way, but he was just really honest about what he saw. And if he couldn't really understand what he saw, he was asking me why. And it kind of made me realise how much I didn't know rather than how much I thought I knew. And that definitely broke me for a short period of time. But it actually is what then made me want to learn so much more and made me realise how much more there was to learn and how every horse teaches you something different. So that, that desire to constantly try and be better, I think was instilled in me. Probably I had it there anyway, but David certainly helped nurture that within me. And, he's continued. He's not just a coach to me now. He really is a mentor. And occasionally he still makes me cry. But most of the time, he is the most incredibly inspiring person. And, he's definitely been a huge part of my journey. But, it doesn't come without sarcasm and dry humour. And, he'll say to you, "Have you got your phone on you?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And he'll be like, "Will you just give me a ring when you get to the other side of your leg yield?" Yeah, okay, point taken. Horse needs to be a little bit more reactive. But, it is that balance of, it's a very dry humour, but actually it really helps in a lot of situations. So he was a massive part of that. So what we said, the tendency to be a workaholic, to strive to always want to be better. And then I think compassion is something that I am very passionate about. And I think that goes both in the riding and the coaching. I think that we always have to look to try and understand both the horses that we're working with and the people that we're trying to help. And that is, a huge part of developing both ourselves and them.
I'd probably say two words. I would say curious. And, Wendy in the introduction talked about I have a podcast. And last year, I think it was one of the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. But I've had people say, "Boy, you're a really good podcast interviewer. Like, how do you practice being a good podcast interviewer?" And I said, "I don't practice and I don't try. I'm just curious about people, and somehow that curiosity draws their stories out." So that's one of the things. And I think, with horses, being curious about why they're not doing the thing you want rather than being mad that they're not doing the thing you want really helps with, Ben mentioned he was good at problem solving earlier on. So I think curiosity is a big, was it a trait or a character trait? Yeah, I think curiosity has been a big one that's helped me a lot. I didn't talk till I was 2. They actually thought I had a speech impediment. I couldn't talk. And then I started talking. I didn't shut up. And my favourite word was why. And here we are later. I make lots of money talking. And I think the other character trait would be sensitivity. And, I grew up in, rural Australia where boys don't cry, boys don't show fear. And I think I grew up a very sensitive lad and had to learn to hide that, and I heard it for a very, very, very long time. But it really helped me training horses, because I really didn't have access to emotion, so I could be very black and white about things. It's not till later in life that I started actually, doing some work to have the sensitivity come out and embrace it. And I feel like now I can actually use that sensitivity and that, those emotions to actually help get along better with horses. But I do think for quite a long time, the extreme sensitivity that caused me to kind of shut down a bit actually was very, very helpful with horses, like I said, because I could be pretty even keel about a lot of things. And then the other thing, I don't know if it's a trait, but I didn't suck. Is that what I said before? I wasn't very natural with horses. Like, things didn't come naturally to me, so I had to struggle to learn things, and I had to understand something inside out and back to front and upside down before I could do it, which helped me when it come to teaching others, because I can give you an analogy. I can give you the same thing. I can tell you the same thing 500 different ways so that you get it. So it's kind of helped me be a good coach. And I have friends who are really, really talented, and they can't tell you what they do. They don't coach very well because they just have that ability. So I think the not quite sucking so bad was actually a helpful trait in having me learn how to be able to teach to people in a way they can understand.